Jason Momoa, Hollywood's untamed spirit, a titan who gave breath to the king of Atlantis and compelled the world to kneel before the inferno of Khal Drogo in the Game of Thrones. From a child born of Hawaiian tides to the icon who now commands the spotlight on the crimson carpet, he forged his own legend against fate's relentless currents. Yet, behind the shimmer of his triumph lies a saga not of glamour, but of raw and unforgiving hardship. A scar carved by chance. A brutal accident that nearly extinguished the vision in his left eye. A boyhood fractured, a soul split between two separate worlds. Torn from the arms of his father and the embrace of the sea that was his cradle. A profound love with Lisa Bonet. A bond the world saw as unbreakable, which in the end dissolved into silence. The sorrow of losing his brother, Paul Walker, to the cruelest turn of destiny. And today, at 46, a new tempest gathers on his horizon, darker, heavier, and more personal than any before. If the legend of Jason Momoa has ever moved you through his formidable strength, his deep compassion, or his indomitable will, honor him with a salute to the warrior who showed us that heroes are not without wounds, but that the truest among them always find the strength to stand once more. There's a profound sorrow when a great story begins not with a roar of victory, but with a whisper of absence. For Jason, that silence was born in Honolulu, a paradise that offered him the ocean's heart but stole his father's presence. He came into this world under the gilded skies of Honolulu, Hawaii. On August 1st, 1979, the infant was given the name Namaiha, the spirit of the water, and was rocked in the cradle of the Pacific. His first songs were the murmur of the tide and the thunder of surf on volcanic shores. His father, Joseph Momoa, a native Hawaiian painter of immense pride, revealed to him how a brushstroke could capture the very soul of existence. His mother, Connie Lemke, a photographer with German, Irish, and Native American heritage, framed the dance of light and shadow, teaching him that profound beauty could be found even in the quietest moments. They were two untamed hearts, entwined in love, but ultimately fractured by unspoken sorrows. Before Jason could even hold the memory of his father's laugh, their love receded like the tide, and this child of the islands was carried inland, far from the ocean, to Norwalk, Iowa. What greater ache is there than for a child to be ripped from the symphony of his home? In Iowa, his world was foreign. Endless fields stood where the ocean once surged. The crash of surf gave way to the fall of snow. The rhythm of the islands became a crushing quiet. The horizon was a vast, unbroken line. But for Jason, its vastness was a profound emptiness. He yearned for the salt on the wind, the memory of his father's touch, the oceanic pulse that had once lulled him into slumber. He would often drift through silent streets, straining to hear echoes of a life he'd lost, a ghost among playing children, feeling as if the very air had forgotten him. The grip of poverty was relentless. The Iowan winters were blades of ice. Frost bled through the meager walls of their small, cold apartment, where dinner was often just watered-down soup from a can. At times, it was one meager meal split between them. His mother, a bastion of quiet strength, raised him single-handedly, working 2 jobs, her every sacrifice a lesson in resilience. But no amount of courage could mend the void left by a father's absence. As other children's laughter filled the open sky, Jason learned the solemn weight of what was missing. He discovered that love could evaporate without a final word. He watched fathers embrace their sons at the end of a school day, felt the sting of vacant seats at school functions, and mourned the phantom of a man whose face he could barely recall. Night after night, he would lie in the darkness, trying to conjure the image of his father's face, asking the silence if the ocean back home still remembered his name. He would later confess that every warrior he ever embodied was born from that solitary boy in Iowa, forever searching for the sea, forever waging a silent war against his own isolation. Yet even in this landlocked world, the wild still beckoned. He scaled trees as though they were the great cliffs overlooking his native Pacific. He raced into the heart of storms, as if to reclaim the wind that had left him behind. He battled against swollen rivers and deep snows. The untamed land became his sanctuary. The sands of his home were replaced by snow, but no cold could ever extinguish the inferno burning within him. Each sunrise he pursued was an act of defiance against the shadow of loneliness that followed him. School was a battlefield for his restless energy, a place where he fought to align the world's expectations with the untamable spirit he possessed. And those early scars became his sacred text, From that point on, Jason learned to transform absence into presence, silence into a roar, and stillness into a tempest. The ocean was not a memory. It was the very rhythm of his heart. Each internal wave that broke within him was an echo of the years that were taken. Every breath of wind carried a whisper of a home he had lost, but would never forget. His was a spirit forged in the crucible of exile, a relentless current that would drive him to seize life with a ferocity that few could ever match. It is a chilling truth how vast the chasm can be between the dream of finding one's place and the stark reality of merely surviving. After high school, he was drawn to marine biology, an attempt to academically embrace the very thing his soul ached for, the sea, the lifeblood from which he had been severed. But his spirit was too vast to be confined within the pages of a book. He journeyed to Paris, where he learned to paint emotions, not just portraits. He traveled to Tibet, searching for a sacred silence among monks, hoping to find the peace that his restless heart had never known. Every pilgrimage was a fragment of his soul being reclaimed, another stone laid in the bridge between the lost boy he was and the man he was destined to be. But the call of his homeland was a constant echo. Before his final year of study, he left it all behind, not in an act of defiance, but in an act of profound longing. Upon his return to Hawaii, the very air seemed to carry the scent of forgiveness. He met his father once more, felt the sacred waters of his birthplace, and for the first time in an age, the tempest within him found a moment of calm. But the reality that awaited was far crueler than any remembered lullaby. He found work in a surf shop, his bare feet burning on hot floors as he sold boards to travelers who were blind to the hurricanes swirling behind his eyes. Every dollar earned was a small triumph, a humble meal, a fraction of the rent for a roof that was barely his. The labor was punishing, hauling heavy boards until his shoulders screamed, scrubbing gear until his hands were cracked and bleeding. The nights offered no relief, spent in a cramped apartment thick with the stench of mildew and sea salt. Rain brought leaks that wept from the ceiling, and on some nights, there was no home to return to at all. He slept on park benches by the shore, shrouded in a worn-out blanket, listening to the very waves that had once sung him to sleep. A gnawing hunger became his constant companion. His fingers grew numb from unending toil. His knuckles were raw from both work and worry. Public beach showers were his only respite. He would painstakingly count his coins, hoping for enough to buy one meal. And still, he would not break. Even on the most bitter nights, when doubt rolled in like a cold sea fog, the ocean itself whispered a promise that all tempests eventually subside. And then, destiny arrived. Wearing the face of a stranger, on a humid afternoon in 1999, the Japanese designer Tako Kikuchi saw a towering, sun-weathered young man wrangling surfboards and extended an offer to step into the world of modeling. Jason just laughed. He possessed no refined angles or rehearsed charisma, only the fierce, untamed spirit of a soul, forged by hunger, by cold, and by nights spent under a naked sky. Within months, Hawaii would name a Model of the Year. To the world, it was an ascent into glamour. For Jason, it was the first echo from destiny affirming, "You have a place." He would later say with a voice thick with emotion, "I feel like I was born tonight." This revelation came through a veil of tears and disbelief, his bare feet planted on a stage he had never dared to dream of. For the months that followed, Jason was a ghost in a machine of fleeting jobs and hollow auditions, each a bet against himself, every denial a fresh fissure in his spirit. The days bled into nights inside the steel sanctuary of his car. His only refuge when rent was a forgotten promise, the windows clouding over with the ghost of his own breath. He would make meager sandwiches last for days, sometimes nourished by a single meal, rationing provisions with the discipline of a soldier on the front lines. Borrowing from friends who had little to spare, his hunger shadowed by a silent shame. He stood on the precipice of surrender, tempted by the siren call of the surf shop and the familiar ache of defeat. He had nearly convinced himself that aspiration was a privilege reserved for others, not for a boy from Iowa whose world was built from absence, until a single phone call altered his entire trajectory, chosen from over 1,300 other hopefuls. The role on Baywatch Hawaii was his. As Jason Ioane, he would film 40 episodes in a movie. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't merely enduring, he was becoming. If I had not picked up, he would reflect years later, my story could have just faded away. He confessed, I was one audition, one single moment, one yes away from walking away from it all. The monolithic doors of the industry began to show cracks of light, yet he had to battle for every part against a system that deemed him too imposing, too raw, too far outside the mold, until 2005 when he was cast as Ronan Dex in Stargate Atlantis. In this character, he found an echo of his own odyssey, a warrior exiled from his home, perpetually searching for a tribe. His 4-year portrayal forged a loyal legion of fans and set the stage for the role that would become his legend. In 2011, HBO gave him the mantle of Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones. Though his reign lasted a mere 10 episodes, his impact was a seismic event, a force of nature, primal, and utterly unforgettable, that launched him into the global stratosphere. Yet this ascent demanded a heavy toll. His body buckled under the crushing weight of relentless preparation, while his mind walked a tightrope between raw ambition and complete exhaustion. But still, he endured. It is a common belief that great success yields great happiness, but for Jason, triumph was a harbinger of tragedy. In 2017, at the very peak of his rise, fate intervened violently as he was leaving a Los Angeles bar when a man shattered a beer bottle across his face. The explosion of glass tore into his left eye, a brutal violation of skin, muscle, and spirit, as a crimson veil fell across his vision. He was certain his sight was gone as he was rushed into the chaos of an emergency room. He left with 140 stitches and a scar that remains a permanent map of that night etched over his brow. For a long while, he was frozen in time. He stood before his own fractured reflection, questioning if the world could ever perceive him as anything more than broken. It was a moment that would reshape his soul. Some wear their pain like a medal, he would later reveal. I wear mine quietly, stitched into my flesh, a testament that ferocity and fragility are two sides of the same coin. He believed the assault was the cruel climax of his trials, but his story was far from over. In that very same year, he became Aquaman in Justice League, a character destined to solidify his place in cinema history. But the journey there was a brutal odyssey of physical and emotional endurance, training until every fiber of his being screamed in protest. He plunged into glacial waters and pushed his physical form to frontiers few would ever dare to explore. When Aquaman debuted in 2018, it conquered the global box office, earning over $1 billion. The film crowned Jason as one of Hollywood's most formidable stars, yet even amidst the roar of success, a quiet undertow of sorrow pulled at him from the shadows. In 2013, during the production of Fast and Furious 7, Jason was struck by the devastating loss of his dear friend, Paul Walker, in a car crash. The news left him in ruins. Paul was more than a colleague. He was a brother, a kindred spirit who knew the treacherous currents of celebrity and the profound isolation that came with it. For days, Jason was lost in a sea of grief, unable to find solace in sleep or sustenance in food. He was simply a vessel for sorrow. It seemed as though heartbreak had a cruel architecture, returning to trace the lines of old wounds, and soon after, the foundation of his own marriage began to crumble. He had met Lisa Bonet in 2005, and their connection felt like a cosmic alignment, a love story penned by the stars. She was 17 years his senior, a mother, a creator, a soul who moved with an ethereal grace. After 12 years and 2 children together, Lola, Iolani, and Nakoa Wolf, whose laughter was the very rhythm of his heart, they finally married in 2017. In the public eye, they were an image of perfection. To Jason, they were his entire universe, the sanctuary of family he had sought his whole life. But by 2022, the combined weight of fame, distance, and the slow, quiet erosion of their bond led them to part ways. Their love did not end in a fiery explosion, it simply receded. It was like a masterpiece of color slowly turning to monochrome. The man who had constructed a cosmos of love for his family now found himself wandering through the sacred ruins of his own heart. And for the first time, the vast ocean within him erupted into 1,000 furious waves. As he later recounted, "That sorrow is still with me. It doesn't disappear, it becomes a part of your landscape." It was another scar he had to learn to carry. Financial ruin soon followed. Despite headlining some of the world's biggest films, Jason's financial ground had always been unstable. There was a moment when his bank account held only $1,700, while he faced 7 years of unfiled taxes, the cold machinery of bureaucracy threatening to crush him. He engineered his own resurrection with a strategy as fierce as his will to survive, embracing smaller roles, producing his own work, and pouring his energy into conscious ventures. He birthed Mana Brew, a craft beer collaboration with Guinness, transforming a personal passion into a flourishing enterprise, and launched lines of sustainable goods, from footwear and eyewear to bespoke knives and water bottles. Piece by piece, with painstaking resolve, he rebuilt his world. Each dollar earned was a small reclamation of his power, every settled debt a wound finally allowed to heal. With his partner Adria Arjona, 13 years his junior, by his side. In her, he discovered not a fleeting romance, but a profound connection. Her quiet strength became the harbor for his lifetime of storms. Together, they moved through the world as if it were their own cinematic canvas, their motorcycles carving paths along fog-draped coastlines. Their journey is a tapestry of hand-in-hand treks across volcanic landscapes and intimate dinners bathed in the gentle fire of a California sunset. The man who once roamed the frozen plains of Iowa now splits his time between a sprawling California estate worth around $3.5 million and a secluded haven on Hawaii's North Shore. His home's telling a story of a life earned and built with purpose. His collection includes a fleet of Harley-Davidsons, a classic 1955 pink Cadillac he calls Bernadette, and rugged Earth Roamer expedition trucks. His world is completed by private boats, a quiver of surfboards bearing the signatures of ocean legends, along with 2 hybrid wolves and a donkey named Freya. Today, at 46, Jason Momoa is a living monument to resilience, the embodiment of the truth that the most profoundly shattered hearts can mend, and that our deepest scars can become our greatest sources of strength. The material markers of his life tell a story of exploration, creation, and conviction. Though his fortune is estimated near $14 million, such a figure pales in comparison to the existence he consciously builds. His abundance is found in kinship, in artistry, and in his influence, for the man is not measured by his acquisitions, but by his contributions. In the decade that has passed, his efforts have channeled millions into the guardianship of our oceans, aid for the afflicted, and the enlightenment of children. He is a figure seen rallying others to cleanse the shores, saving the creatures of the deep, and teaching his own children that to be a steward is a profound and sacred calling. His family is the very pulse of his universe. He shares an unbreakable bond with his 2 children, Nakoa Wolf, now 17, and Lola Iolani, 18, whose vibrant spirits and laughter fill the halls of his California haven and drift along the wild coasts of Hawaii. Each day is a masterclass in wonder, in vision, and in discovery. At the break of dawn, they glide beside him on surfboards. In the morning sun, they gather what the tide has left behind, and they wander forest paths where the aroma of pine weds the salt of the ocean. As he would tell it, the sound of applause dies, the gleam of trophies dulls with time, but love, compassion, and the fortitude to stand up once more, these things are eternal. They are the only riches of true worth. They are the imprints that last beyond a lifetime. From the child who was torn from the sea's embrace to the man who became its champion. From a world of hardship and hurt to one of meaning and tranquility. The chronicle of Jason Momoa's life is a powerful lesson. That our resilience is not forged in a life without pain, but in the unwavering refusal to be defined by it. His journey is a testament that genuine wealth isn't counted in currency, property, or renown, but in the moments we share, the affection we give, and the positive mark we leave upon this world. If this narrative has resonated within you, offer a tribute in the space below and share the single moment from Jason Momoa's Odyssey that profoundly affected you. And no matter where this night may find you, may you be granted the spirit to face your own tempests, the resolve to endure your own battles, and the grace to transform each scar into a chronicle worthy of being told.